So you hit start streaming. Now minimize that.
All right.
Okay. So now,
Is is it doing the thing?
yep, I'm just waiting for it to get here. There it goes.
All
All
right.
right.
Yep, we're started. All
Okay.
right.
So now what I'm going to do is, hey, everybody, I'm going to go to YouTube and try and um, go see what y'all are seeing.
That won't confuse you at all because there's a delay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's okay. Channel live. Oh, did I not hit go live yet? Stream settings, concurrent viewers. Oh, no, we're live for 45
Live.
seconds. Okay,
Okay.
we're live. Say hello.
Hi, I'm James. Dad decided to hide from the camera today because he's a baby or something. I don't know. Yeah, today. So I know, especially the last podcast, but a lot of our previous podcasts, we brought up things like genus or species and stuff. And I feel like they're kind of confusing, especially the last one, because we are like, this specific species wasn't around, but the genus has been around for X amount of time. And I feel like that can be kind of confusing. So I thought it would be a good topic next to cover a podcast going over the general taxonomics that would be helpful to understand things we talk about in the podcasts. We try to explain it when we do it, but overall, I think it would be better if we actually had some like one podcast you can go to that's like this explains this stuff. All right, so you can see here on my screen, this is the general like phylogeny taxonomy ranking thing: life, domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Each one getting more specific and thereby being a subset, as you can kind of see by like the thing coming out of a little hole and then it having holes the next thing comes out of, and so on. So another important thing I want to cover is the fact that this stuff can be complicated, even if it seems relatively simple on the surface, and there can be lots of little like nuances here and there. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So a general overview was interesting is this system wasn't made with our current understanding of science. It was made beforehand by Carl Linnaeus in the 1700s by just using physical characteristics. Like he kind of told that all the cats are similar and all the dogs are similar and so on. And while it wasn't based on evolution, it was actually pretty close. Like he got close enough to the point where we've just tweaked it a little bit and now we use it for everything. So we use Linnaean classification for all animals, and that's
And
this
Linnea,
system.
he did plants and everything, right?
Yeah,
Because he's at the Chicago Botanic.
yeah, because plants are, yeah, because this is all life.
All life.
Like,
Okay, so that's why. So it's
yeah.
not just
So today
okay.
we will be focusing on the kingdom Mammalia, which animals, and then we'll be going down all the way to species and subspecies, which I'll get to that at the end. But as you can see, like, there's more up here, like domain and life. And interestingly enough, this stuff is constantly changing. So here I have a highlighted thing here. Just this Thursday, so for us, that's 3 days ago. And I mean, no one's watching this live, but if someone was watching, well, except you, but if someone was watching this live Thursday, so 3 days ago, they discovered a new species of Spinosaurus, which is pictured here, with signified by this large scimitar-shaped crest, where it gets its nickname, the scimitar spinosaurid. Um, I'll explain why it's a species and what that means later in the podcast. But yeah, also,
Yeah, because like when we say species, that's like a particular thing. There's like class
yeah,
and
that's
phylum
what this
and
entire podcast is
species.
about.
But I'm saying we throw around species like in colloquial talk,
Yeah.
but
And
it's
usually you're kind of on point with species when people just say colloquially, but there's a lot more to it.
okay.
Also, a couple weeks ago, there was a study where they found fossils of a new life form that doesn't fit any of the current
Okay.
kingdoms of life, like animal or plant or like anything like that. So like they might have found like a new form of life, which is really interesting. Like it wouldn't fit into the like it would be a new branch.
Very cool.
So yeah, very interesting. Anyway, so class. Class is where we're good because obviously in ant we're starting with the kingdom Animalia and then phylum Corta, which is vertebrates. We're gonna mainly talk about vertebrates because That way you'll be able to like compare it in your head the most. Like we could talk about like the classification of insects, but you won't really have a good grasp on what that would mean. So we're going to focus there. So now we're going to start with class. Class is the division that at first you think you understand. Mammalia is mammals and amphibia is amphibians, right? That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
However, reptilia is reptiles, dinosaurs, and birds. Yes, technically, birds and dinosaurs, according to evolution and phylogeny, are in the class Reptilia. However, modern birds are usually put into the class Avis, which technically would be a subclass of Reptilia, but because birds are so unique, they're usually made into their own class. Does that make
Is
sense?
there only flying ones or?
No, feathers,
Oh, okay.
yeah, all that
Physical
stuff.
characteristics,
All
all
that
that
stuff,
stuff.
like all the
Okay,
different things. Yeah.
okay.
So technically, Avis isn't a real class according to the definition of a class, but scientists still use it a lot. And if you thought that was bad, fish. All right. Actually, wait, I have a book. Let me explain some of these things. Actually, you probably won't be able to see this well on the little camera, but we won't use that yet. So this is a zoology book, which is helpful. This is important. So, like, what I'm talking about right now, if you, I'll explain out loud. So if you can't see it or you're listening, it'll be fine. Um, so fish, there's technically multiple different groups. The ones we're used to talking about are the ray fin fish, which are most bony fish, and then sharks and rays are in their own class. So ray fin fish or bony fish are Achnoteuperculi. I butchered that. And then chondriichthyes is sharks and rays or cartilaginous fish. And then you also have like hagfish and lampreys and one end and then lobefin fish on the other. But so the problem is fish isn't a monophyletic clade. Clade is just anything. Clade is like if it doesn't fit any of these specific definitions, like it's in the middle, it's a clade. Clade's kind of like the wasteback of the taxonomic system. So anyway, but in order to include all fish, you also would have to include all other vertebrates, essentially. Outside of lancets, I guess. Those guys suck. But all the other vertebrates have to be included.
So us.
Yeah, so technically, according to the definition of fish, we're a fish. So that's falling out of favor. Well, for example, with birds and reptiles, mammals are separate. They split off. But when to include all the reptiles, you would need birds. So technically birds are reptiles.
Okay.
And you wouldn't need amphibians. So that's the problem with some of the current classes, but and that's why you can't just say technically birds isn't a class. They're part
Okay.
of
And
reptiles.
this has just been because as we've learned more and more things,
Yeah.
and we're still trying to fit within Linnaeus's original
Yeah.
structure.
Also common like everyone knows what a bird is. And it's not a wrong statement. It's just
Right.
that technically if you say reptiles, you technically include birds.
Okay.
Also,
Okay.
important thing to note, birds are more closely related to like crocodiles than
Okay.
they are like other types of
Okay.
reptiles. I think that goes to like crocodiles are more closely related to birds than
Right.
any other, which is just funny.
Yeah.
But yeah. Also here on the slide, if you can see it,
Yeah.
well, if people are listening,
Yeah.
this is for just primates, which I'll bring up a couple more times. But as you can see, like humans and apes, old world and new world monkeys do make up a monophyly or a monophyletic group called Simiformes. And then lemurs, lorises, and tasirs are a paraphily, which is like would be like fish. Fish would also be a paraphily, or however you say that. I'm not a pronunciation guy. Um, but like it's like they cut off at a point, but it's still a group. Polyphily is when you include things that like aren't actually connected. Lorises and tarsiers. This should be like if you lumped like salamanders and lizards. Like there's like technically they're related if you go far back enough, but how you've grouped them, you're not out. You're taking like the ends of two branches and like sticking them together.
Okay. So that's why that one line goes the other direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Technically, if you wanted a monophily, you could get like lorises and lemurs. Or no, that would be a paraphily. So a like Monophily could be like no, no, yeah, because it would be like okay. Anyway, a good example to talk about with class is a really and kind of how it can be more complicated. Yes, it can get more complicated. This this is Archaeopteryx. Okay, Archaeopteryx lithography to be specific. Again, I'll discuss what that means later. Um, the interesting about its class is that it's Archaeopteryx is often called the first bird. However, we're not exactly sure if it was a bird. Some scientists say it's in Avis class, which I know we just discussed Avis is really a class, but if it's in Avis, it is a bird.
Okay.
Okay. But we're not sure if it's an Avis or if it's an Avile, which is a clade that's like birds and like things that look like a bird, but technically not birds, basically. So we're not.
So the clade is more of a kind of fits,
Hmm.
but is an outlier.
Yeah. Or
Okay.
example like Dinosauria is a clade.
Okay.
So it's not an order, it's not a class. It would be like between class and order,
Okay.
but or maybe class and family
Right.
and kind of skip order, but like it's its own group.
Okay.
So the thing is that there's the main splits and there's lots of little splits. That's where you can get things like subclasses and infra
Right.
orders and
Right.
but all those are clades,
Okay.
essentially. Clade is especially when there's just really not a good term for it.
Okay.
Archaeopteryx is Theropoda, which is a clade, not an order or anything, but it does have a family, Archaeopterycidae.
Mhm.
So basically, Archaeopteryx and like maybe one cousin. Okay. Um, would grow up to 1 foot 8 inches, weigh 18 to 35 ounces, have a wingspan because yes, these are considered wings
Mhm.
of 2 foot 4 inches. Would have eaten small animals like insects, lizards, and mammals. You can see the Field Museum artwork here is them fighting over a lizard, would have lived 150.8 to 148.5 million years ago, and now was now the Schlofim limestones in Germany. Again, I probably butchered that. Um, its habitat. So back then, Europe was like a shallow sea, and there was lots of different islands across it. And in that, they would have lived on those islands on sandy beaches with trees and lagoons and stuff like that. And so both this artwork and this plush are from the Field Museum because they recently got the 13th Archaeopteryx skeleton ever found, and they've displayed it. They have a whole exhibit. Great to go learn about bird evolution and Archaeopteryx and see stuff. We just went there a couple weeks ago. It was great. I had a really good time. I think it was just over a week ago at this point, maybe. I don't know. No, 2 weeks, whatever. Point is that that was cool. So, and also I thought this would be cool to bring up. And I should probably link this podcast to my
It was probably two
avian
weeks ago.
yeah, 2 weeks ago. Probably should link this podcast to avian bio because we talked about Archaeopteryx because obviously it's a big point in bird evolution. All right. So that class. Now we get down to order. I'm gonna be honest, order is probably the category that we're gonna talk about today that's the hardest to understand. Or at least it's the one that doesn't stick out. Because like as we talked about, class is like reptiles, and there's obviously there's nuances, but it's reptiles, mammals, so on. Orders where things get complicated. Let's start with a simple one. Carnivora. Carnivora is an order that includes most carnivorous land mammals. Bears, cats, dogs, weasels, even seals and sea lions, which I got those are aquatic, but you can kind of see like, oh, they all are mammals, they eat meat usually or mostly, things like that. However, you might think whales and dolphins fit into that order, but they don't. Whales and dolphins belong to the order Artiodactyla, which includes things like hippos, deer, antelopes, and cattle. So, like, evolutionarily, they're like not connected that much to like the other carnivores at all. So there's also order is important to highlight when splits happen that are surprising. However, reptiles, we're not going to talk about birds, just the reptiles you're thinking of have an interesting quirk. So crocodilians are in one, turtles are in another, but lizards and snakes make up one order, Squamata. So snakes and lizards are more closely related than any other groups of reptiles are.
Well,
And
because
with
lizards are just kind of snakes with legs,
yeah,
or vice
also
versa.
here is on my slide you can see a glass lizard, which you can tell by the shape of the head and how it lives and stuff. This is a legless lizard. Specifically, I have pictured here the western slender glass lizard, but you can see it's a lizard without legs, and you can so that's a good way to visualize how they're more closely related. But the animal I want to talk about with order is the aardvark, because the aardvark is the only living animal in its order, like the only one. So, class of Mammalia, order, which it's the only one in, Tubulidentata.
So he literally lives by the motto, "It's gonna be me."
Yeah. And then family, which I mean that's even lower, is, and again, only one. I can't say that. Or Ketopodidae. Um, 3 foot 4 to 4 foot 3 long, 2 foot tall, and then 130 to 180 pounds. So, they're quite large for just like a random mammal.
Right.
Their diet is mycophagy, ants and termites. They eat ants and termites specifically, like
Okay.
99% of their diet.
Okay.
Um, they actually have existed for 5.33 million years. Like I believe this species specifically has existed, or at least the genus, maybe this. And again, we'll explain that at the end. We have to get through all this first. Um, in modern day sub-Saharan Africa, so savanna, shrubland, and dry forest are the obvious ones, but also will exhibit Mediterranean type habitat. Coastal shrub with more trees is essentially what that means. Think of an Italian coast, it's kind of like open, but there's a spanning of trees, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
And also temperate grasslands.
Okay.
There is one temperate grassland in Africa called the Highveld in a mountain range.
Okay.
And that technically holds a lot of African animals
Okay.
that you would not think live in like a prairie habitat, but they do in that one spot.
Oh. Okay.
So that's interesting.
Okay.
But yeah. So aardvark's closest living relatives are elephants, manatees, and hyraxes. Hyraxes are their own classification nightmare because they're literally like near elephants and stuff or whatever. But because aardvarks are in its own order, and as we discussed earlier, primates is an order. I mean, a class. No, primates is an order. Yeah, primates is an order. You are more closely related to lemurs, like King Julian, or even Mort, because Mort's a mouse lemur, by the way. So you are more closely related to Mort than this thing is to anything else on the planet. Just think about that for a second. I know, isn't that weird?
I'm gonna be more.
You're gonna be Mort? Okay. We gotta watch that video that's like 2.5 hours on how Mort is the the manifestation of death or something. That's a crazy video. It's actually a compilation of like 30. It's crazy. That one guy, you gotta respect him. He just makes crazy YouTube videos. Anyway, back to the topic. Now we're going to family, not your family, but the taxonomic family. And this one is also something that's relatively obvious for the most part.
Okay.
Felidae is cats and Canidae is canines. Okay, now
Yeah.
you can kind of see what level we're at.
Yeah.
Like groups of animals that are more specific.
Okay.
All right. There are some that are a little more complicated. Bovidae has antelopes, bison, buffalo, cattle, goats, and sheep.
See, I would have thought of buffalo and cattle.
Yeah,
And that.
it's a little broader than that, but it's still, it makes sense. A surprising split to me, one of the most surprising, is in birds.
Okay.
So, Acetipitiformes is most birds of prey.
Okay.
Most is specific here. Hawks, vultures, eagles, things
Basically
like
any
that.
rat.
But there are two major exceptions: falcons and owls, which are each their own family. Also, falcons includes kestrels, by the way, and
Okay.
kites sometimes. Kites is weird, but or is it kites are always birds? Whatever. Anyway, but yeah, so that's kind of weird. I will say one thing that is a acetiptiformes bird of prey is the secretary bird, which we talked about in our Crazy Bird podcast. So if you want to go watch that after, look at me, big brain. Okay, what is that? Self plugging, whatever.
Yeah.
We're done with. No, well, we're not done with that. I snuck in another one, but anyway. But yeah. Now Dinosauria is interesting too. Dinosauria, like I said, is just a clade. Even theropods and sauropods, which is theropoda and sauropoda, are
Mm,
also clades.
okay.
There's not even like no dinosaur really has its own set order. We haven't figured it out. It's a mess.
Okay.
But they usually have families. For example, Spinosauridae, all like the long, like Spinosaurus and all his relatives are Spinosauridae. Tyrannosaurus and all his close relatives are Tyrannosauridae. So there are usually families for dinosaurs, but order is usually just a whole jumble that doesn't exist. And then class, they're technically all reptilia. So, but platypus is interesting. You know, Agent P, platypus. Yes, so this is the platypus. And unsurprisingly, this thing is in its own family. Because look at this guy. Does he look like anything? Technically, there's extinct relatives, but however, so family Ornithorhynchidae, but it's in the order Monotremata, which, also known as monotremes, is a family that has other living relatives. Those would be the echidnas. And what makes platypuses and echidnas special in monotremes is that if we open my little book, they make up a third group of mammals known as the monotremes or egg-laying mammals.
Oh,
So
okay.
monotremes lay eggs.
Okay.
Platypuses and echidnas both lay eggs, by the way.
Okay.
And then, but they're very rare. They appeared during the Cretaceous, and most of them are gone, except the ones I have discussed. Marsupials are also kind of marsupials give live birth, but you know they have the pouch and everything.
Right.
They're a separate group of mammals, and they're really only existing in Australia, and then some in South America, and the Virginia possum, also just a possum if you live around here, is the only one in North America. And then placental mammals make up the majority of mammals.
That's kind of like the duck-billed platypus, as opposed to that other platypus.
Yeah. Even though there is no other
Oh,
platypus, there's
no, there
only
is
the
no other
duck-billed
platypus. Exactly.
platypus.
Like,
Maybe if you go extinct, but I think a lot of them still had like this duck-billed
yeah.
thing. But yeah, that's interesting. Some fun facts. This guy's females can get to 1'5" in length, males 1'8". Males are a little bigger. Same with weight, 2 pound females, 3.7 pound males. That is small animals where they have like electrosensors in their bill. Like sharks have electrosensors in their face.
Yeah.
So they're like sharks. Not scary at all. To eat insects, worms, shrimp, crayfish, soft eggs, bivalves, anything small in the water that's not a plant.
So 12'5". No,
One
one
foot
foot
five.
five,
Wow.
1'8". The male is 3 inches bigger.
Okay, we're talking.
And he probably always describes it as I'm this much bigger and spreads his little flippers as far as he can.
Males have a venomous spur.
Oh, well, that's the compensation.
Yeah. All right. They also live from about 5.33 million years ago to modern day in eastern Australia and Tasmania, in rivers and lakes in places like rainforests and mountains. So, but basically just rivers. All right. Now, genus. What do you think a genus is?
I would assume a genus is a more refined
Mhm.
classification.
Yes, we've been going down the entire time.
Oh, well, look at that.
Good job.
I'm so
No, but
smart.
like, what do you think it is?
Oh, what makes the difference?
Yeah, like, give me an example of what you think would be a genus.
Uh,
Realize
so
the.
if you have a cow and an antelope,
Uh-huh.
one is hunted by prey every day, and the other one
Okay,
just
that's
eats
all right.
hay.
We're cutting you off. You have no idea what you're
Okay.
talking about. Point is that, in my opinion, it's the most weird because species is like you got that one guy, and family is like you got this whole group. Genus, okay. Also, interestingly enough, what's the scientific name of T-Rex?
Uh, it's not Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yes, that is the scientific
Oh,
name. But
Tyrannosaurus.
that's
Okay.
interesting.
Okay.
Tyrannosaurus rex, the first part is the genus name.
Yeah.
The second part is the species name.
Okay.
This is the only animal we do this with. Like no one
Oh,
else. So, for example, the Spinosauruses we were talking about
right.
earlier, the one we always know is Spinosaurus gypticus.
Right.
They just discovered Spinosaurus mirabilis,
Okay.
or the scimitar spinosaurid.
Okay.
So those both are in the same genus of Spinosaurus. Those are
Okay.
both Spinosaurus.
Okay.
However, for example, in modern day, we don't like, okay, we'll talk about this, but lots of the big cats are in the same genus, like lions and tigers,
Right.
and
Right.
leopards and jaguars and snow leopards.
Okay.
I'll just point up here. They're all leopards, jaguars, snow leopards, tigers, lions. They're
Okay.
all in the genus Panthera.
Okay. Yeah.
So lions and tigers
And bears, oh my.
are this no, not bears. Lions and tigers are the same level of relatedness
Okay.
as the two species of Spinosaurus are.
Okay.
Does so the problem is with most extinct animals, we know them by their genus name. Stegosaurus, Spinosaurus,
Right.
Triceratops,
Right.
Smilodon for saber-toothed cat. We know them by the genus name.
Right.
But with modern animals, we split them more up in our heads by the species. Leopard, lion, tiger.
Okay.
But realize there's like Stegosaurus stenops and Stegosaurus ungulatus
Right.
is the same as the lion, is essentially as we're making an example in your head.
Right. Right.
A lion Stegosaurus and a tiger Stegosaurus.
Okay. Okay.
Does
Okay.
that kind of make
Yeah.
sense? But the point is, it's
Yeah.
the lion and tiger is the same split as those two Stegosaurus.
Okay. Okay.
So for some reason, we've referred to most extinct animals by the genus,
Okay.
but most modern animals by the species.
Okay.
And the scientific name of all of them
Right.
has both the genus and the species.
Okay.
So am I like causing an earthquake or something?
No, no, no. No.
Okay. But yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I feel like this causes confusion because you read the scientific name of an aardvark, for example,
Right.
is Ocetoporus afer. But technically, there isn't. But if there was another one,
Right.
let's say the Advocae, I don't know,
Right. Yeah.
that's like, gold and has ears half the size and lives in Nantucket,
Right.
okay, that would
Nantucket
be
ticket.
that would still be in the same genus.
Okay.
So isn't that just weird?
That is weird.
Now, a crazy example is Tyrannosaurus Rex. I brought
Okay.
this one up because
Yeah.
it's the only species in the entire animal kingdom that we
Right.
refer to by its scientific name fully, its genus and species.
So it's the only one that's backwards.
No, it's the only one that no, they're all like that. All scientific names, the formula is genus and species.
Okay.
Tyran-
Except him.
no, Tyrannosaurus Rex. The genus is Tyrannosaurus.
Oh,
The
okay.
species is Rex.
Okay.
The Rex, though, is the only species we currently know of.
Okay.
In 2022, Tyrannosaurus imperator and Tyrannosaurus regina were suggested as other species.
Okay.
Sue would actually be a Tyrannosaurus imperator, by the way,
Okay.
if this came to fruition. But it's
Okay.
heavily criticized because no one likes the method.
Okay.
Everyone's like, you're crazy, basically. I think it used like bone size, but like that's not whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know the specifics. Anyway, and then there was another one in 2024, Tyrannosaurus macriensis, which is supposed to be a primitive tyrannosaur from earlier in a
Okay.
different formation. But it's also not it's believed to just be a T-Rex, and it's probably not accurate to call it that.
Okay.
However, as of October 2025, and confirmed December 2025 with another paper, Nanotyrannus is a new dinosaur. It's like there's been a debate about this guy for years.
Right.
We did a
Well, he was
podcast
just
on
a
this.
little tiny.
Yeah, we thought it was a
Yeah.
juvenile T-Rex.
Right.
There was and we had the podcast on
Yeah.
this. Now
Yeah.
but now it's its own genus.
Okay.
So realize that we thought a completely different genus
Right.
was just the juvenile of this thing,
Okay.
but they're different genus. Also, we now believe there are two species of Nanotyrannus.
Okay.
Nanotyrannus, I think like Lithaeus, and Nanotyrannus something. They're both with L. They both start with L. And
Look over there.
sorry, I'm trying to think. No, the one in the Burpee Museum is a different species than, for example, the one I'm going to go see this summer in
Okay.
North Carolina.
Okay.
That's where the fossils are. That's not where they were found. I think they were both found in Montana. But
Right.
anyway, so those two now Tyrannus are more closely related than they are to T-Rex,
Okay.
even though we assumed they all were juvenile T-Rex for a while.
Okay.
So do you see how complicated this whole genus business can be?
Yes.
Now, for an example, I brought the Indo-Chinese leopard. That's a subspecies. I'll get to that in a second. I
Okay.
just wanted to talk about a leopard that's or a member of Panthera that's more obscure,
Okay.
just to because I wanted to say like lion and tiger and stuff for other podcasts. Not that
Right.
I can't repeat animals, but I want to try to
Right.
get a variety. Indo-Chinese leopard, Mammalia carnivore felidae, 3'3", 4'9" length, 2 to 2'4" height. Females are between 62 and 132 pounds, while males are between 110 and 143 pounds. And also, you can tell Indo-Chinese leopards because they have kind of this more rich, darker color, which I
Okay.
really like. The picture's better. This is an old Rainforest Cafe plush. It's probably supposed to be a jaguar, but
Right.
they gave it rosettes and they gave it the wrong spots, or
Right.
maybe it's leopard spots can be. That's probably its own podcast. Leopard and jaguar spots. Anyway, but again, leopards and jaguars are in the same genus with
Right.
lions, with tigers, with snow leopards.
Okay.
So all those are at the same level as the new Spinosaurus, Spinosaurus mirabilis,
Okay.
is with the old Spinosaurus, Spinosaurus aegypticus.
Okay.
Does that make sense? That
Yes.
they are that so genus is like you genus is despite being at the start of every creature's scientific name,
Right.
is a higher level classification that includes more things than you would think.
Okay. Okay.
Also, Indo-Chinese leopards live in rainforest, rainforest and deciduous forests in mountains and lowland areas. So leopards in trees,
Okay.
and they live. Leopards in general, I don't know about specific subspecies, but leopards in general lived from 2.5 million years ago till now.
Okay.
Also, leopards eat like medium animals. This one specifically would probably hunt deer, boar, monkeys, porcupines, and even gar, which is like a big forest cow.
Okay.
It's more specific, but yeah. So do you understand genus, Dad?
I think
Because
so. I think
again,
yeah.
it's the most complicated one. Maybe
Yeah.
that's one you
I
all
think
want to do more independent research
yeah.
on. I say independent research, just look it up is basically what I'm saying.
Right.
Don't freak out. I'm not asking you to go write a scientific paper.
Right.
Trust me, it's overhyped. It's not that fun. The words are way
Right.
too. I have to do another one this semester. I'm not excited.
Okay.
Anyway, species and subspecies. Now let's get down to species and subspecies. You all know what's like species.
Yeah.
The gray wolf, the lion, the tiger, the orangutan. Those are all species.
Right.
Or technically orangutan. No, yeah, orangutan species. Okay. And the concept most usually used for species
Right.
is that species are groups of organisms that can interbreed in nature and produce fertile offspring.
Okay.
This is the biological species concept. For example, lion and tigers can't don't breed naturally. And if they
Together.
yes, and
Okay.
if they
Yeah.
do breed, the offspring's usually unfertile.
Okay.
They make the liger or the like if it's the other like but that's like a specific gender of each parent. If the genders are switched, it's a different creature or
Okay.
whatever. Or like horses and donkeys are different species and
Okay.
they can make the mule, but the mule is always sterile.
Okay.
Does that
Yes.
make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Also, note that a lot of these are in the same genus, or
Okay.
like very like because both lions and tigers are in the same genus. I think horse and donkeys. I should probably just look this up real quick, but I'm relatively sure these are in the same genus. Um, horse. All right, Wikipedia, because Wikipedia always has these nice things. So equus, maybe not. Equine. What's the donkey then? Donkey. Yes, donkey and horses are in the same genus, okay?
Okay.
So oftentimes creatures in the same genus can breed, but they can't make fertile offspring that can make their own babies.
Okay. Okay.
However, there are exceptions. The blue-winged and golden-winged warblers can interbreed. They're in the
Okay.
same genus, different species. They can
Okay.
interbreed, and their offspring can usually have kids of their own.
Okay.
And technically, lions and tigers, there have been a few rare cases. I think there's one specific case where an offspring of a lion and a tiger had her own kids.
Okay.
So, but that's pretty rare. Again, also
Okay.
that only happens when we breed them. They don't
Right.
even because of human hunting and like habitat destruction, they barely even run into each other anymore.
Right.
But yeah, so usually species is defined as interbreed in nature and produce fertile offspring, the
Okay.
biological species concept.
Okay.
but technically there are exceptions.
Okay.
So sometimes there are other definitions of species used, and
Okay.
it's still a debated topic,
Oh,
though
okay.
most people stick with the biological species concept.
Okay.
For example, paleontologists will often use the morphospecies concept because, well, you can't breed two fossils together to see if they make a fertile baby. So
A
instead,
fertile fossil.
you have to use more physical morphological characteristics.
Okay.
So yeah, so for the most part, species breed and have kids that are fertile. There are exceptions, but
Right.
most of the time.
Okay.
Now, subspecies is interesting. As you saw, it wasn't in the original thing, but subspecies are a very vague term.
Okay.
Subspecies are same species, but usually different populations with slight differences,
Okay.
and they change constantly. Gray wolf, the gray wolf, is a
Mhm.
species.
Mhm.
There's North American and European subspecies. Pictured here is a European one.
Mhm.
But North America, it used to be considered that there was 24 subspecies of gray wolf in North America. Nowadays, it's more like 4 or 5. They
Okay.
have condensed it.
Okay.
And again, it's all like they live in slightly different areas, have slightly different average fur colors. Wolf's a little different because I know wolves can be pretty varied with their colors. Maybe slightly different size, slightly different diet. Like it's like the
So nitpicking.
yes, it's nitpicking
Okay.
because like all of these can breed. It's just
Right.
that because they live in different areas, they kind of form their own little group.
So like this group likes spicier foods. This
Yes,
group puts more
essentially.
sauce on their pasta, and this
Essentially,
group.
yes. Also, tigers used to be 9 subspecies.
Okay.
It's now 2. And so you know the Siberian tigers we see at the zoo, the
Yeah.
biggest one, the ones
Yeah.
that live in like the snow,
Yeah.
is now combined with the Bengal tiger, the ones that live in like the Indian jungle and mangroves. But
Makes
they're the
perfect
same
sense.
subspecies. They were different subspecies and now they're
They're
the
the
same.
same.
You know, I would argue that if you're going to do subspecies, wouldn't you do it there?
Yeah.
So the point is that and also I don't know the genetics. They obviously had a reason to do that.
Yeah.
But the point is that subspecies are really vague.
Okay.
But I have one interesting example of a subspecies that I think will also help you think of what a species is.
Okay.
This is the cave hyena. I
Okay.
picked a mini that was my least hyena looking hyena to be a cave hyena. But anyway, cave hyena is the same species, Corcuta corcuta of hyena, but it's believed to be its own actually, technically, I think cave hyenas make up 2 different subspecies, but we're going to focus. But the point is, they're separate from the hyena.
Okay.
However, we have DNA from frozen cave hyenas because these were around during the Ice Age. So we have the DNA, and we know that they are different, but they're not different enough to be their own species.
So hence subclasses,
Subspecies, yes.
subspecies.
Unlike the brown hyena and the striped hyena and stuff, which are their own species in the genus, I believe. Or is that even a little too wait? Brown hyena, for example.
Okay.
No, actually, those are even in their own genus. Sorry, that's a bad example. Okay, but the point is that um, these are not different enough to be even their own species. Like, there's less difference between a cave hyena and a hyena than a lion and a tiger.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's really interesting because they would probably look similar
Right.
at Mammalia carnivora hyenidae, but they were bigger. Same length and height, 5 foot, 3 foot 3, so around the same proportion. But
Right.
cave hyenas are believed to have weighed between 194 and 227 pounds.
Okay.
So around 200.
Yeah.
Modern hyenas usually reach from like 98 to 141.
So half weight.
So 100 to 150 pounds instead of 200.
Right.
So they're significantly smaller. And then that's females. The males are even smaller from 89.3 to 121.3 pounds.
Okay.
Because females are larger, they're more dominant, they have pseudo penises. That's its whole own podcast. But
So they're a matriarchal.
yes. But yeah, so cave hyenas, which lived in Eurasia from 0.5 to 0.2 million years ago, Ice Age, which is a complicated, is technically not that, it's Pleistocene, but
Yeah.
all right. And they lived in cold deserts, specifically tundra and temperate grasslands, and frequented caves. There's big cave systems in Europe that animals often use during the Ice Age because it would be warmer in there.
Okay.
So they're not just called cave hyenas because they went in a cave every once in a while. There was actually like a whole cave system with like giant bears and lions and hyenas. And honestly, it sounds horrifying to be in. It's dark, and all of a sudden you're surrounded by two giant bears, but whatever. But yeah, so this is a subspecies of hyena, and this is the weird like exception where I feel like the subspecies actually do have a difference,
Mhm.
unlike other subspecies, like the two species of subspecies of wolf is like one slightly more brown than the other. The
Right.
subspecies, yeah.
Right.
So yeah, as you can see, overall, this is kind of a complicated taxonomy is complicated, but in general,
So Linnaeus did a pretty good job with what
but
he had available at the time,
yes,
and
uh-huh,
we're just now trying
refining it.
to refine it for
Yeah.
yeah.
But as an overview to wrap this up, to kind of like help like class is like the big groups, mammals, reptiles, birds. Technically, you can call birds a class. It's
Yeah.
complicated,
Yeah.
particularly in reptiles, but okay.
Right.
And fish kind of sucks balls, but so I probably shouldn't say that. They're just bad. I'm sorry. You might have, this is a live stream. You can't edit it out. I'm sorry. I don't know what you want from me. Okay. The professional way. It's bad.
Yeah.
That's the professional way. I'm sorry. Okay. Archaeopteryx with see, because you're not saying next to me. I'm too casual. This is your fault. We're blaming you.
It's all my fault.
We're firing you.
It's
Okay.
all my fault.
Then order is a little smaller, but still large groups. Carnivora is most land animal, carnivores.
Yeah.
Um, that's why I called carnivora. I know,
Yeah.
shocking, right? Artiodactyl, though, is more complicated. It has hippos, deers, antlers, cattle, whales, dolphins.
Right.
Which, if we talk about the whale evolution podcast, there's a third one I didn't even think about. That you can kind of see that more. Anyway, but for example, snakes and lizards are an order,
Okay.
but turtles are their own order, and crocodilians are their own order.
Are turtles and tortoises the same order?
Yes, they are different families.
Okay.
So it's family, so you know, turtle and tortoise are family.
Okay.
Um,
Toads and frogs.
but also, yes, they're in the family. Yes, they're in the family of No, no, they're not. The order. Frogs are in toads are in an order.
Okay.
I would say family, but I think there's a lot of different families for
Difference.
them.
Okay.
You like it's not just like frogs and toads. I think there's like poison dart frogs and
Yeah.
other frogs
Yeah.
and stuff. Or birds of prey. Most are in a single order family.
Okay.
Most birds of prey are in a single family.
Okay.
But there's some exceptions, like falcons are their own family and owls are their own family.
Okay.
For example, things
Okay.
like that. Um, and cats, Felidae, their own family. Canines, Canidae, their own family. Things like that. Then genus is groups of very similar species.
Okay.
For example, lions, tigers, jaguars, leopards, snow leopards.
Just reflex
That's
to say bear in there.
don't. That's not right. That's all a genus. And for extinct species, you'll usually hear about them via their genus, the
Okay.
first part of the scientific name. Spinosaurus, Tyrannosaurus, Velociraptor, Stegosaurus, Triceratops. Those are all genuses. But then you get to species, which, for example, is like the lion is a species and the tiger is a species, but they're in the same genus.
Okay.
And then there's subspecies, which at that point you're nitpicking. And outside of very rare examples like the cave hyena and the spotted hyena,
Do you like acidic spaghetti sauce or sweet spaghetti sauce?
yeah. hmm So that is an overall view of taxonomics. I know it's complicated, but I'm hoping
Yeah.
you can come to this podcast if you're listening to a future podcast and we're focusing on something else and we kind of fly by
Yeah.
taxonomics.
This would be a good one to refer back to
Yeah.
just to get a general.
Especially because the last one, I feel like we were kind of throwing genus and species
Yeah.
around a lot.
Yeah.
I was throwing it around a lot, and
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to do this one.
Well, and I guess the good thing to know is that even the scientists are still struggling
Yes.
with some of this.
Technically, species isn't even a 100% defined concept.
Right.
We have a general consensus,
Right.
but it's still debated. We're not sure if Archaeopteryx, albeit an extinct animal, we're not even sure if that's technically in the class Avis or not.
But hats off to Linnaeus that he got us this far
Yeah,
with his
he
system,
did pretty
and
well
we are
considering.
finding ways to adapt it and grow it
Yeah,
with
instead
new
of just making a
knowledge.
new one, we just
Yeah.
use a modified version of his.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wonder if they have the same They're having the same issue in botany.
I bet botany's more complicated.
Probably. Yeah, with all the hybrids and everything.
Oh God, with all the yeah. All right, so I hope you all enjoyed.
All right.
You think that was good, Dad?
I think that's it.
All
All right.
right.
I'm gonna walk over here
Bye.
and hit end stream. Hang on a sec. And we're out.
I'm sorry, I said.